Live. Hey, I'm live. Trying to tell my husband. Thank you, thank you. My husband just walked the dogs for me because I'm so late today. Lost track of time, sorry. But I'm here. It just seems like I haven't had a lot of time today. Yeah, because I've been on here. But I'm trying to get this done. It has to get done. I have a deadline, right? Let's see. Let me just take this out. What is this? Yeah, I don't have anybody in the chat. I don't expect to have anybody in the chat, but just want to have it ready in case. This is, you're seeing behind the scenes here. Okay, I'm gonna shrink that. And yeah, I just want to have. How can I see where that is? There it is. Okay. Sorry, I'm just getting everything together here. Thank you for your patience. If anyone was even waiting, but just in case somebody was, I apologize. I do tend to run late, but I try to be on time. Really late today. Sorry. So let's continue. There was something I wanted to say that I thought about later, and I don't remember what that was at this point, and maybe something else will remind me. Let's get reading. By the way, I never say this. I don't really introduce myself, do I? I just kind of assume you know who I am. I've got my little name right here on the screen. My name is Claire Elliot. I don't know what to say about myself, but other than I am the Zodiac killer's daughter, born in 1965. How are ya? And the true identity of Bryan Kohberger was my ex-boyfriend. If it weren't for my tips to the tip line over in Idaho, Moscow, Idaho, they wouldn't have ever found that needle in a haystack. Literally, that's what it would have been for them. If it had, I had no idea that David's his true identity, David Wayne Craig. I had no idea he was wearing any kind of disguise, and I know the police, Moscow PD, was a little concerned that I wouldn't understand that really was David in disguise. But I figured it out pretty quickly, and they relaxed. I know they were really nervous as they announced that they had their suspect, and his name is, the police chief was a little nervous. Did you notice? That was because, because of me. I mean, I know, you're like, oh, Claire, yeah. But I'm telling you, there's a lot of information that's about to be released to the public that the public has no idea it's coming. And I'm part of it. And I really do believe this manifesto, it was written by, I know, my husband, Dean Wayne Boyd. Yeah, same middle name there, D first name. He doesn't like to hear about my ex-boyfriends and things like that. And
the only sane Wayne you know.
Yeah, right. The only sane Wayne I know. That's cute, Dean. So yeah, I'm gonna get reading in a second. But this manifesto was written so that I would speak publicly about certain items that need to be publicly released before I can get my money in my life. I really do believe that David was finally turning himself in after all these years. He's had a career, unfortunately, he's had a career that has spanned some 50 years at this point. He's 69 years old. In this photo you see of him on the right here, he's 40. That photo was taken in 1994 after he buried the murder weapon and his bloody clothes on the top of Mount Whitney in California. So I do suspect that Bryan Kohberger buried his murder weapon and bloody clothes somewhere south of Idaho, right on his long way home to Pullman, Washington. I mean, that's just my theory. I wasn't there, but I kind of suspect that, judging from his previous behavior. David, unfortunately, murdered my brand new husband, Ron Goldman, in 1994. So when this Idaho 4 happened, I knew it was David. And I'm very sad that people had to die in order for him to turn himself in. I just wish it could have been simpler. And I've said this in previous live streams. I don't really need to say it again, but in case you're tuning in for the first time, I just want to give you a little background so you're not completely confused. All right, we're reading the manifesto written by Elliot Rodger. If you can see the resemblance. I didn't really line up their eyes, did I? I think what I was doing was lining up the noses. I felt like that was the really obvious trait. Different nostrils. This is not exactly an Asian nose, but Elliot Rodger was not fully Asian. He was half Caucasian, but look at the similarity of their noses. This is an expression I've seen on David's face so many times. It's harder to see the similarities, with these faces because Asian, dark eyes, it's a little less obvious, but you can see that, the structure of the face is very similar. This is a wider face, so there's some flesh or width added to each side of the face. The lips are fuller. It's a fuller lip there. If David had fuller lips, there'd be less space here. Kind of similar to what there is here. Different teeth, He would have had to wear different teeth. Yeah. A similar distance under the nose, as you can see. David is a little heavier here than he is here, so you can see more of the cheekbones, but you see the eyes are similarly shaped, even though this guy is supposed to be Asian, right? Look, he's smiling. I don't know if he's sort of smiling. Their ears, you can't see it. Well, you can if I move it a little. Well, not really. In this little sort of thumbnail, I call it a thumbnail. Can't really see, but they have their ears are at a similar level. If you look at Bryan Kohberger and him, well, I don't know if you can see. Yeah, I cut off his ear there, but David's ears are higher, as you can see right there. See? But, Bryan's that was the first thing I noticed, that his ears were just a little too low there. But you can see the nose is it's a similar nose, just adjusted, just a little different. Here he's not smiling, so his eyes are a little rounder, right? But you can see the color of those eyes. I know the lighting is slightly different. Same eyes, okay? These are David's eyes. He has, these eyebrows are placed in the exact same, they have the exact same placement as David's real eyebrows. Of course, darker hair, but same exact placement with this disguise. It seems that, there's a similar bone structure underlying them, but it seems like the eyebrows were placed a little higher. You see that? It's like they used the same shape of the eyebrows with darker hair, of course, and placed it above his eyebrows, right? And it changes the look of the face quite a bit. And, of course, he looks a bit more, he looks Asian, right? Yeah. Darker skin. And I noticed that you know, I was talking earlier in earlier live streams about how there was probably more space for his real ear, and that's why this ear can be placed where it is. There, you know, there's more space for his ear to lie flat underneath, and he can have this fake ear right here. With Kohberger, I mean, maybe the real Kohberger had lower ears. Probably, they had to make it look the same as the real guy, right? I believe David murdered the real Bryan years ago. He's a hitman. He does stuff like that all the time for the CIA. Took over his identity. They do it all the time in the CIA. It's very sad. It's disgusting, actually. I don't know what kind of lineage, or I don't know. Kohbergers don't really have a lot of money, but maybe they have some secret money. You know, David has a security clearance. He knows all that kind of stuff that I don't. Wispy's walking around here. So that's kind of a background for you, right? Yeah, so the ears are much lower here, and his real ears can fit in here, right? And you know, and this is like a more natural. I've always kind of noticed that a lot of disguises have lower ears, but obviously not, you know, Elliot Rodger's. But see, look at the lips, same lips. And if you look at their chins, I mean, oh, I guess, did I cut it off? I can't believe I cut it off. How did that happen? Anyway, they have very similar chins, and you can see the similar shape of these chins too. I mean, it's amazing. You just have to look at it, you know, and examine. All right, so enough of that. Here, I'll put these eyes right here. They're watching us. Let's see. Yep. You see that? Bryan is watching us. Oops, I don't mean to keep doing that. All right. Here it is. Okay, so we left off at 12 years old. I've been doing this. This is what, number 8? What am I on? Number 7? I can't keep track. And I'm only on page 32, and it's not 141 pages. It's actually 137 pages. I'm not even halfway through. I'm not even anywhere near. I mean, I'm only like a quarter of the way through. It just seems crazy. Okay, I'll get reading so we can make the most progress, because I really think that I have to do this before Monday, because the deal is David has to take off his disguise on air. I mean, we won't see it live. It'll be in the courtroom in front of all the cameras. That's the deal. If I get this done, and I'll be doing this all night long if I have to get it done before Monday, okay? And the deal is, David, you have to take off your disguise and mask on camera for all to see on Monday, at your hearing on Monday, when you are set to deliver an alibi. A non-existent alibi, because you did it, right? All right, so I'm going to get this done. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I'm going to get this done. And I really do think that Bryan has special privileges in jail, and maybe none of the other inmates know. It's probably kept hush hush because he's a government employee, you know, with security clearance, CIA, and I bet you anything they've given him little top secret privileges. And he's got his little tablet in his little cell. You know, he's isolated from the other inmates. And he's on his little tablet. And he gets full internet access. And I bet you anything he's watching me. I hope he is. And because I kind of get, I'm being encouraged. I'm telepathic. And he's telling me I'm doing a good job. Thank you, David. Thanks. I mean, I'm doing the best I can. I don't know what to do. So, anyway, hey, my name is Claire Elliott. I did mention that, right? I need to start introducing myself. I'm just like, it's on the screen. You know who I am. Watch my other live streams. Look at my YouTube banner. I don't know. Zodiac Killer's daughter. Otherwise known as the Dragon King's daughter. But, you know, we won't get into that right this second. Let's just get this manifesto done. It's a book. This is a book. It should have been a book that he published. Okay, 12 years old. For the rest of the summer, I resumed my routine of relaxing and having play dates. Boy, he had such a nice existence, didn't he? He had the life. I tried to forget about what happened at summer camp as much as I could. Okay, so a really pretty girl was very rude to him. I think this is what I wanted to mention when I was done streaming last time. You know, a pretty girl that humiliates you like that just because your friends tickle you and you bump into her, she's not worth your time of day. I mean, who cares about a girl like that? She's stupid. A girl who is that rude and makes a fool of you in front of everyone just because you bump into her by accident and because your friends were tickling you. You know, what a loser. What a stupid idiot she is. You know, why do you want to impress her? Why would you allow some idiot like that to make you feel so inferior and bad about yourself? You know, screw her. Don't even give her the time of day. You know, what a stupid girl that is, in my opinion. So, you know, don't even let it faze you. I mean, who cares about her? But he says this girl scarred him for life, or at least scarred him for part of his life. I don't know. I can't even believe that. I mean, he just had it too perfect. I guess he had too good of a life, and then one little thing happens and oh, he is scarred for life. That is terrible that he's that fragile. And I don't know. We'll see how it goes, what happens going forward. So he tried to forget about what happened at summer camp as much as he could. Okay, he was totally humiliated. He was silent for the whole day, the remainder of the day. It was such a trauma for him. John Joe came over to my house where he slept over for the first time. We played a few video games, and then he told me that he wanted to take me to a place called Planet Cyber, a cyber cafe that had all of the best online PC games. Sounds cool. I knew nothing of the sort, but it was just down the street from my mother's house. I walked there with him, eager to experience something new. This was my first experience with online gaming. Playing video games with people over the internet invoked a whole new level of fascination in me. Talking to people over AIM was fun and new, but this was tremendous. I always loved playing multiplayer mode on video games when I had friends over. With online gaming, I could do it whenever I want. I could do it whenever I want. I was a novice to these new games on the PC, but I got the hang of it after playing with John Joe for a few hours. The games we played were Day of Defeat and Counter-Strike. Mother took me and Georgia on 2 little vacation trips in the same week. For the first trip, we went to Long Beach, where we stayed at the Hyatt Hotel. That's a nice hotel. We used to stay at the Hyatt. Does he want me to mention that? When we went to Orlando as a family, we stayed at the Hyatt Regency. That was the hotel chain that my father's business always put us up in. The Hyatt. We thought we had made it when we were staying at the Hyatt. It was very nice. I remember we thought it was really nice in the 1970s. Okay. It reminded me of our little trip to Ventura 2 years previously. Yeah, my clone lives in Ventura. We visited the harbor and the aquarium. The 3 of us really bonded on this trip. Okay, so That's good. We went home for a couple of days before going on the second trip. For the second trip, we went to Legoland and stayed at the resort there. The resort was exceedingly beautiful with a huge swimming pool and spa. We met up with a family of one of George's friends and explored the entirety of Legoland. Oh, that sounds like fun. When we got home from our marvelous trip, I had another sleepover with John Joe. He loved the fact that I lived near Planet Cyber, so he would soon be calling every week, asking to come over. I saw Charlie a few days later. Charlie was also familiar with Planet Cyber, and when the two of us went there, he introduced me to an RPG game called Diablo 2. I didn't know what to make of this game. It was like an adventure game similar to Banjo, Kazooie, and Donkey Kong, but much more mature with the ability to interact with other players online. It was only a matter of time before I started inviting John Joe and Charlie to sleep over at the same time. When the three of us went to Planet Cyber as a group, I had an absolute blast. It was one of the best experiences of my life. See, he had such a good life in so many ways. I don't know what his problem is so far. At Father's house, Father would frequently invite his new friend, Alexander Bubenheim, over. Alex Bubenheim was a boisterous German man who worked as a composer and lived in the top of Topanga community. Alex had a son named Lucas, who was a couple of years younger than Georgia. Lucas was a very girly and immature little boy, but I found him to be very amusing. They would come over almost every weekend that I was at Father's and became a big part of my life there. Okay. 7th grade began. My coveted summer break was all over. On the first day, I noticed some people I met during summer camp start school there as 6th graders. Okay, but he was a grade ahead of them. One of them was Patrick Dibb, the younger brother of Alex Dibb. I would always view Patrick Dibb as an obnoxious, rude lout. A lout? What is a lout? Do I have... Okay, lout. Definition of lout. An uncouth and aggressive manner boy. Boy, I guess that must be British to say something like that, right? The British have all these words, you know, they sound like dictionaries sometimes. We Americans, we kind of simplify things. Rude, obnoxious, rude lout. He was very ugly, too. Okay, very ugly. So you felt, so yeah, you're not Elliot Rodger was not an ugly guy. He was actually quite cute. So I don't know what his problem was. Okay, he was very ugly too, and it annoyed me that he carried himself around as if he wasn't a freckled, chubby-faced imbecile. God, he's got so much. I don't know. That's the British for you, though. They've got so much. They do. They have a lot of pent-up rage, don't they, the British? And they use their words very violently. And that's what he's doing here. Okay. I said hello to everyone I knew from last year, including Robert Morgan and his clique of popular kids. There were also a flock of new kids who transferred from the Pinecrest in Van Nuys. I was soon to meet them. Among these were Alfred Graham, Anthony Glukov, Johnny Noon. Okay, it looks like no one, but Noon probably, right? Derek Olson, Garrett, Raphael, and Edward. They already knew each other. Okay, so they already knew each other and always hung out together at the start of the year. But I soon noticed that each of them soon integrated into the already pre-established cliques of Pinecrest. I was jealous that Johnny Noon an obnoxious Mexican kid, immediately became popular with the skateboarders because of his cocky attitude. Okay. So you can't become popular because you're a nice person? You can't? I guess not, huh? Well, it's because they're all immature. All right. Alfred Graham, a half-black boy whom I would have a semi-friendship with throughout the years, was intensely disliked by everyone, mainly because he was ugly and had a habit of intentionally annoying people. Okay. He would eventually become friends with the skateboarders, however, due to his interest in the sport. My reputation as the shy kid continued, and I still didn't make any friends who became close enough to see outside of school. I did socialize with various groups during school hours, so I wasn't a complete outcast during 7th grade. Okay. James Ellis started. Yeah, let's get these. Hi. I think it's kind of funny to have them down there, don't you? James Ellis started middle school at Paul Revere Middle School as a 6th grader. Though he is the same age as I am, he was held back a year in elementary school. Coincidentally, he went to the same school as John Joe, Charlie, and a few other friends from Topanga. Okay, it's kind of confusing. After this point, I would stop seeing James Ellis for a while. Our friendship became temporarily stale and would remain so for another year. The only time we saw each other during this period was when we had family get-togethers. James's sister, Sage, often came over to play with Georgia, while James didn't bother to come at all. That's too bad. John Joe and Charlie started to come over every Friday. This would soon become a tradition. Fridays were always my favorite time of the week, and this tradition made me always look forward to Fridays with intense eagerness. Okay. They would be dropped off by their parents shortly after school time, and then we would all walk to Planet Cyber and play games for hours. After a few of these Friday sleepovers, Charlie introduced me to his friend Elijah. Elijah was temporarily staying at Charlie's house, and the two of them were like brothers. I immediately took a great liking to Elijah, and we became instant friends. He helped me beat some of the hardest levels of Halo. Elijah would then come over with Charlie and John Joe, and the four of us became a close group of friends. This was the only true social group I would ever have, and I had a great time with them. We sometimes hung out at Planet Cyber until 3 in the morning, the latest I had ever been out without parent supervision. We would switch between playing Halo at my house, playing games at Planet Cyber, or skateboarding around the neighborhood. I briefly got back into skateboarding for the sake of enjoying it with these friends. On the following Saturday morning, we would wake up by 9 o'clock, have breakfast at Krispy Kreme, and spend a few more hours at Planet Cyber before my friends were picked up by their parents. I would then go to Father's house for the weekend if Father was in town. My sister Georgia's birthday was in November, and on that day, my father hired a limo to pick up Georgia and her friends from Mother's house. Charlie and Elijah came over, though John Joe was absent that day. When the limo returned, we all celebrated Georgia's birthday at the house together. I introduced Father to my friends. It was a very happy experience. When the winter break finally arrived, my grandma Alma came over from England to visit, and she stayed in the 4th bedroom at Mother's house. So Mother's house was not that small. He talks about her house being so small. 4 bedrooms. That's bigger than our house. Alma is just like my mother. She always knew what I liked and went out of her way to get it for me, just to put a smile on my face. She brought with her some of my favorite English chocolates, along with her famous peanut cookies that I love so much. Mother had a party at her house, and a lot of family friends came over, including Maddie and her mom, James and his family, Philip and Jeffrey and their family, and a lot of Mother's old friends whom I hadn't seen for a long time. Amma, who is a professional cook, made some of her special dishes, and we set up a bouncy castle in our backyard. Okay, I see a lot of kids do that now. I invited John, Joe, Charlie, and Elijah over, and we walked to Planet Cyber for a little bit, then walked back home and had some fun on the bouncy castle. Okay, this party is about what? Okay, it was just a general party. James never really liked my group of friends. He told me he thought they were jerks. I suppose he was right about John Joe, but Charlie and Elijah were always nice people. Oh well, I never really liked James's friends either, so that made us even, I guess. I had a great time during this party. James and Maddie were the last ones to leave. Me and my sister played with them for a while on the bouncy castle. It made for an interesting and peculiar experience playing with both James and Maddie at the same time, my two oldest friends. It had been a long time since I had seen Maddie, and it would be the last time that we would ever play together as friends. Before the night was over, we all took a picture together outside my mother's front door. James made a funny face for it while I stood behind him awkwardly waving my hand. To this very day, my mother still has that picture in one of her photo albums. One time when John, Joe, Charlie, and Elijah came over for our traditional Friday night sleepover, we met up with Armando and his younger brother Gus. I hadn't seen them since Topanga Elementary School. We had a good time skateboarding with them at the church parking lot near Mother's house and all over that area. Afterwards, we had some video game competitions at Planet Cyber. My mother took me to watch Lord of the Rings, Return of the King in the movie theaters. I already saw the first two movies, but I wasn't a huge fan of the series until I saw this third one in the movie theaters. Watching that movie in the theaters was such an epic experience, and I will always remember it. I still haven't watched them. And Daddy wrote those. I'd like to. He wrote the books and, he helped create the movies. And I might have contributed as well. I just haven't seen the movies to know. Though it wasn't as exciting as going to the red carpet premieres of the Star Wars prequels, it came quite close. After the movie, Mother and I ate dinner at TGI Fridays. When we got home, as I was getting ready for bed, I heard a knock on my door. It was Elijah asking if I wanted to go with him to Planet Cyber, which I did for a few hours. Wow. How old is he? He's like 12 still? And he's going like till 3 in the morning down the street at a cafe. Wow. That day marked the last time I would ever go to the movie theaters with just my mother, except for premieres. Growing up, I always loved it when my parents took me to the movies. The large screen and loud surround sound immersed me into the movie, and I liked that dizzy feeling I would feel when I walked out of a movie theater and entered back into the real world. It was always a remarkable experience. Yeah, I need to go see a movie in a theater. I haven't done that for years. And I think it's time that we indulge ourselves. I know this is the weekend that Barbie and, Oppenheimer are debuting, or, are opening, whatever you call it, in the movie industry. And they're expecting record turnouts. And, I'm sure we have something playing over here on the west side. Maybe I just don't want to spend a lot of money right now. I always have to worry about money. Because, that's like, for sure, it's going to be like $30 at least. Yeah, we spend that a lot just eating at restaurants sometimes. I mean, not $30 a pop usually, but, yeah, that's what it would be like eating out somewhere a little more expensive than we usually go for. All right, we'll think about it because this is the weekend and tomorrow's Sunday. I'd love to see Barbie. Oppenheimer, I'm not as excited about that one, but I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I'm sure it's a much better movie, but I think Barbie, the idea of Barbie is so cute, you know. It'd be a fun movie. And by the way, when I went out with David, I bleached my hair blonde and I tanned my skin at a tanning salon. He wasn't ever tan, but he naturally had a little extra color in his face from just walking around. He has very fair skin. And, you know, I remember when I was being ABUSED in a group sex situation with him and he participated. I remember people saying, you know, referring to Barbie and Ken. David was like Malibu Ken, you know, because the real Ken was brunette, right? Malibu Ken, though, is blonde, and everybody would refer to him as like Malibu Ken doll. That's what he looked like, you know. I always say Prince Charming, whatever. But yeah, he was like Malibu Ken. And I wasn't, you know, I've never been tall. I used to wear heels in those days to look a little taller. But, we kind of look like Barbie and Ken, okay? Now, you know, but then when I was being ABUSED, there was a girl who was a neighbor. I don't want to get into it. She was actually the one who bleached my hair blonde. She was a hairdresser. And she was really cute, you know. And yeah, there was somebody, I think it was some kids. Yeah, it wasn't during the ABUSE. I think it was somebody's kids. I guess it was her. She had a son, and I don't know. I'm not sure. I remember it was kids, and I remember, I don't know if it was his friends, her son's friends or something, and they would always say, you know, because she was taller than me, and yeah, she was blonde and she was tan. She looked, we didn't look exactly alike, but you know, we were similar types, and she was taller than me, like Barbie. And you know, she accessorized. She had more money, and you know, she was more into her, you know, her attire. And you know, I didn't have a lot of money in those days. I was just kind of getting by, and you know, I managed to look okay. You know, I actually, you know, looked pretty good, you know. A lot of people gave me their hand-me-downs, and I had some okay clothes. I wasn't too bad, but, you know, she was really into that, you know, a little too into that. She wasn't a very good person. She was, you know, she was kind of obsessed with David, and she had a boyfriend, but she wanted to be with David, and David was my boyfriend, and they all ABUSED'd me. You know, I was DRUGGED with date, RAPEDRUGS, and they'd make fun. You know, she was obviously competing with me or trying to make me look like a fool when I was out cold, you know, when I couldn't defend myself. And I looked like a fool, you know, the way they made fun of me. And I was a lot thinner, and before they had those bras that boosted your breasts, I put things in my bra, you know, and they would fall out, and I remember her boyfriend saying, I got Claire's falsies. They weren't falsies. They just boosted what I had and made them more prominent. And of course, they weren't supposed to undress me, you know. I didn't, you know, that was, you know, I wasn't expecting, you know, to be totally made fun of, you know. But anyway, she really enjoyed making fun of me, and so did my roommate who got pregnant during a group sex situation. She was married at the time. I don't know, maybe it was before she got married. I'm not really sure. He was not a Buddhist. Well, neither was this woman who was competing with me. But this roommate that I had recently acquired, just before I moved in with Tiffany, she, she thought her child was conceived by David. And, maybe she was. I don't know. Or maybe she was implanted. We don't know. A lot of women can't get pregnant. Most women can't get pregnant naturally, and they're implanted with embryos without their knowledge, and they think they get pregnant naturally, but they don't. Anyone who's related to me, like my people who are my daughters, none of my genetic daughters can get pregnant naturally. They have to be implanted. My sisters usually can't get pregnant naturally either. I know my mother couldn't get pregnant naturally. She's actually my sister, genetically speaking, and niece. Most of my female relatives can't naturally get pregnant, but I can. Okay. But they wouldn't let me get pregnant. They removed my embryos and implant them in all of my female relatives. It's really messed up. But anyway, she got pregnant. She was married, or she had a boyfriend and he married her because she got pregnant. If she ever thought David was going to marry her, that's not the way to get David to marry you. There's another story I won't get into right now, and she's really scared. Yeah, I won't mention your name. Don't worry. Yeah, there was a woman who got pregnant in the third week of August of 1994. And I guess, anyone who was there knows who I'm talking about. And she went on and on about how it was David's baby and he was my boyfriend. It was totally humiliating. Everybody knew except me, and I was in total denial. I couldn't face it. Nobody told me. But it was right there under my nose. He named her, everything. And then he finally insisted on he was on her birth certificate and everything. And then finally he demanded a DNA test. I mean, I don't know why he didn't demand one from the beginning. I guess he just thought, she didn't use, she had a diaphragm and she intentionally didn't use the jelly that goes with the diaphragm that prevents you from getting pregnant. I was told that her her gynecologist said, look, I'm going to implant you with, one of my embryos. And they take really well, but hey, leave the jelly off the diaphragm and see, maybe you'll get pregnant naturally. And, but it's unlikely. These embryos, they take really easily. You haven't been able to get pregnant before. It's unlikely, but hey, might as well see what happens. Either way, this embryo will definitely take, more than, I don't know what percentage, my embryos they lodge in, there are very few miscarriages with my embryos. They take very easily. And grow to maturity, and they give birth. That's what he meant. But she wanted so badly to, she wanted to go out with David before I ever showed up. And then I showed up and he became my boyfriend instead. She had a boyfriend, I didn't understand what she was up to. David didn't understand either. Clearly her boyfriend was a very well-known producer, very successful producer. I guess they wanted a threesome. I didn't understand that in those days. I was a little naive that way. I just didn't understand that. It's like you want to get married, what you're going to have. I didn't understand, they They had money. I mean, at least more money than me. They had a nice place to live. She had everything that she needed, and she wanted David, my boyfriend David. And I didn't have very much. But I had David, so I don't know. It was just such a humiliation. This happened so many times to me with David. Anyway, the baby was born, and the DNA test proved it was not David's. It was one of my embryos that I naturally conceived. The very first embryo I ever conceived when I was 13 years old in England. And he was somebody that I soon would go out with, re-meet, because I met him back when I was 13, obviously. And I would encounter him again in the SGI and go out with him, and that is her father. But yeah, the horrors, she doesn't want me, she was so scared I was going to tell this story. She couldn't stop telling the story again and again and again to everyone who would listen behind my back, to my face, not using names, like thinking I'm some stupid idiot. And yeah, I was in total denial. I couldn't face it, It's true. But I remembered when the time came, and I remember today, and yeah, the story will be told. And I think the baby was born in 95, and she's pretty mature by now. I mean, what is that, almost 30 years? Well, going on 30 years. She's 28, right? Would that be right? She was born in 95, right? I think that's right. So I think she's mature enough to handle the truth. All right, but back to this manifesto. Okay. I'm just trying to find out where I am. Okay. That day that I saw the final Lord of the Rings movie was the last day I enjoyed movie theaters in peace without fear of humiliation. Why is that? Okay, wait, let me go back. Let me start at the beginning of the paragraph. Soon enough, the movie theaters would turn from... Oh, okay. I have to go back. Right. I guess I had left off with... I liked that dizzy feeling I would feel when I walked out of a movie theater and entered back into the real world. It was always a remarkable experience. Soon enough, the movie theaters would turn from a place of joy to a place of dread. Once puberty arrives, I would start getting jealous of all the young couples. This is so silly. Once puberty arrives, I would start getting jealous of all the young couples or groups of boys and girls who go to the movies together. That day that I saw the final Lord of the Rings movie was the last time I enjoyed the movie theaters in peace without fear of humiliation. Why would you feel humiliated? I used to go to the movies by myself when I was a teenager. When I was in high school, I would skip class to go to a movie by myself. I've always enjoyed watching movies all by myself. That way you don't get distracted, you take it all in, you focus. It's like, when you're with friends or family or whatever, they're always talking to you, distracting you, whatever, but when you're there all by yourself, you can really focus on an experience, take in the whole experience and have an experience. That's the key word there, experience. So I don't know what he's so obsessed with. I mean, he feels outside, like an outsider, and he sees all these people together the way he wants to be. But if he just is a little more patient, it will happen to him at the right time in the right way. I mean, he has plenty of friends. I know they're all boys. He's interacted with girls as friends. At the right time. He's probably not at that level of maturity yet. It seems like he's a late bloomer and he doesn't know how to naturally bring those situations about because he hasn't developed. His hormones are not being released yet, and he's maybe feeling still like a kid while everybody around him is starting to develop and know how to naturally do those things. He just needs to be patient. The late bloomers are sometimes the best. Late bloomers sometimes bloom in the best way. And they're better. All right. Aside from Fridays, I always met my group of friends at Planet Cyber on Wednesdays because they were charging only $1 per hour on Wednesdays. Okay. Usually my mother wouldn't let me play video games for such a long time on a weekday, but she made an exception for Wednesdays because it was only $1 an hour. On one such Wednesday, Charlie introduced me to the game Warcraft 3. It was like no game I had ever played before. It enabled the player to build an army and battle against other players online. After the first round of Warcraft 3, going up against John, Joe, and Charlie, I was captivated. The game was so much fun. I couldn't help but think about it every second for the next 2 days. When the following Friday arrived, we played it for most of the day and well into the night. My initially happy interest in the game Warcraft 3 had an ominous tone to it. This was the beginning of a long relationship with the Warcraft franchise. In less than a year, and again, his relationships are with, this is a franchise. He was talking about a relationship to, it was like a game console before, right? It's kind of strange that he calls it a relationship with an inanimate object. In less than a year from that point, they would release their ultimate game, World of Warcraft, a game that I would find sanctuary in for most of my teenage years. Okay. 7th grade flew by very fast. My school life was a continuation of 6th grade. Okay. I mingled with acquaintances here and there and behaved nicely with everyone. The difference is that I was having so much fun outside of school with my friends at Planet Cyber that I didn't really care about getting popular at school or getting attention from girls. I think that's healthy. He hadn't bloomed. Late bloomer. That's normal and that's natural and that's good sometimes, okay? It's better sometimes. I was enjoying my very last year of childhood. Good. That's what you want to do. My 12th year was one of the best years of my life. Good. And the last year that I was happy. I'm sad to hear that. I'm glad that I can at least say I made the best of it. Okay, but what good did it do in the end? But yes, good. I gave no thought at all to my future or the fact that puberty was just around the corner. I barely even knew much about what puberty was. With puberty, my whole world would change, apparently, I guess. And my entire life would collapse into utter despair. That is sad. I wonder how I would have handled things if I knew, if I was prepared. Okay. I mean, I would think your parents or the adults around you would help you if you needed support or information. This summer was long awaited. I was having the time of my life, and once school was out, I couldn't wait to spend the summer relaxing and doing fun things. I was relieved that neither of my parents made me attend summer camp. That's good. If a kid doesn't want to go, good. I mean, I hope they have something to do, but, I suppose I had gotten too old for it. This summer, okay, not really, because I went to summer camp when I was, I was in 8th grade and 9th grade. I was 14 and 15. I guess he's talking about kids summer camp, not music summer camp. I went to Northeast Music Camp. This summer was mine to enjoy however I wanted. How nice. It was like a coveted treasure that I could only hold for a few moments, but those moments would last forever in my memory. Good. I wish it had prevented you from doing what you did. It was my last summer before puberty, my last summer of innocence, my last summer of true happiness and satisfaction with life. Wow. Okay, he's 12, right? He's about to turn 13. Okay. I mean, I don't remember his birthday, but it's the summer. He's going to tell us about his birthday. He always does. He always talks about his birthday. It's like the end of the year, right? When let me see. Yeah, he hasn't had a birthday for a while. Oh yeah, July is his birthday. Duh. That's on the thumbnail. July 24th. So it's before July. Okay. Or before the 24th of July. Okay. I continued my traditional Friday sleepovers with Charlie, John Joe, and Elijah. Because there was no more school, they would sometimes come over on other days as well. I managed to beat the entire game of Halo on legendary mode with Elijah's help, an impressive feat. Okay. Philip and Jeffrey came over quite a lot as well. Philip was always the mature and insightful brother, while Jeffrey was the wild and funny one. Seeing the two of them together always made for an interesting and excitable mix. Their mother, Kathy, brought them over on weekdays quite often. We drank a lot of soda, ate a lot of candy, and played with scooters and skateboards around my mother's neighborhood. I took them to Planet Cyber one time and showed them some of the games there. On the weekends I spent at Father's, we usually did something with the Bubenheims. They lived in the top of Topanga community, yeah, he mentioned that earlier, where we often spent afternoons. I played with Georgia and Lucas in the swimming pool there, and being one who admires great views, I spent a lot of time looking out at the valley. Going to that place would always remind me of my 5th grade graduation party, a good memory. Okay, so things are still really good in your life. Sumaya told us extraordinary news. On one sunny afternoon at Father's, me and my sister were asked to come to the dining room for a special announcement. It wasn't announced by words, but by Sumaya indicating to us, he forgot the to, us to feel her stomach. She was pregnant. She and my father were having their first baby together. I was going to have a baby brother. I felt elated. I remember when I was a bit younger, I always asked my father and Sumaya if they were going to have a baby, and they said they would like to. I still felt surprised when it was actually confirmed. It was that warm feeling that would envelope me when a good change happened in my life. I had no idea what it would be like, but I welcomed it. My stepmother, Khadija, came to stay with us for a second time, mainly to help Sumaya prepare for the birth. In the middle of the summer, Mother took me and my sister on a vacation to Malaysia. This was the first time we would go on an overseas vacation with just Mother, and I was pleased at the thought of it. We took off on my 13th birthday. Okay, so that was July 24th. I spent my birthday on the airplane, a much more exciting birthday than the previous few. We traveled on Singapore Airlines, and though we weren't traveling first class on this trip, I found it to be just as comfortable. The staff of Singapore Airlines knew it was my birthday, and they brought me a cake with a candle during the middle of the flight. It was a very nice gesture. See, he's very thoughtful in documenting all these little details. We had to spend 8 hours at the Singapore airport. I thought this airport was such a pleasant place that I really enjoyed just spending time there. It was all part of the vacation experience. The airport was huge and much more entertaining than LAX or any airport in Europe that I've been to. This is all in Singapore? Okay. The three of us walked around and explored, went shopping, visited all the common areas, and had a nice meal at one of the restaurants. There were a lot of foreign candies and sodas that I was curious to try. Traveling with just my mother and sister was a lot less stressful than traveling with father and Sumaya. It was wonderful. When we arrived in Malaysia, we met up with my grandma Amma, my mother's sister Min, and her husband Jack and cousin Emma. They were also visiting Malaysia from England. We all stayed at a tall hotel building near the beach. Sounds like a really close-knit family, you know? After we unpacked everything at the hotel, some of my mother's relatives who lived in Malaysia came to see us. We had a birthday celebration for me at the hotel that night. Before I went to sleep, I pondered over the fact that I was now a teenager. Yes, 13. I had a lovely time on this vacation. Our hotel suite was on one of the highest floors of the building, and it had an exquisite deck that provided a view of the ocean. During the trip, we toured around the island of Penang, visited Georgetown, went to a fun water park, and had very delicious meals at many exotic restaurants. Just relaxing and watching movies at the hotel was a joy in itself. The vacation was so nice that I didn't even miss my life at home. The 3 weeks flew by very fast, and I cried a little when it was over. It was a good sadness. He had a good life. I celebrated much better than my life. I celebrated my birthday again at Father's house on the night we returned to America. That's nice. Another birthday for you. I was allowed to have my very first glass of beer for this celebration at age 13, huh? Okay. I always thought of alcohol drinks such as beer and wine as mysterious drinks that were forbidden to children like myself. Father would let me have only a small sip of wine from time to time. Having my first glass of beer felt like a big honor. I'm sure he was totally drunk. For my present, I got my first cell phone. During this era, cell phones were like a rite of passage for kids my age. I always envied the kids who had a cell phone. John Joe had a silver Sprint phone with green lighting that I always coveted. To finally have a cell phone of my own made me feel so proud. My phone was a silver T-Mobile phone with blue lighting. I loved the satisfaction I felt when I opened it up and saw the pretty lights. Okay, 13 years old. Here we are. 9 more years to go. Okay. I enjoyed the rest of the summer as best as I could. On the first Planet Cyber session, after being back from vacation, I met up with John Joe. They had the new Warcraft 3 expansion available to play, and the two of us tried it out. I had a sleepover with Charlie and Elijah, and they introduced me to their friend Julian Ritz Barr. Julian went to Topanga Elementary with us, though he was 2 grades lower, so I never knew him beforehand. I thought he was very cool, but a bit stupid. We competed with each other at Planet Cyber. I continued to see him with Charlie and Elijah a few more times after that. Okay, all right. That's right after their vacation over the summer, and this is the end of the summer. Coincidentally, Julian's parents were friends with Rob Lemelson, small world, and I didn't know this at the time. A few years down the line, I would cross paths with Julian again at one of the Lemelsons' parties where I would spitefully envy him for being so confident with everyone. Oh my God, why? So silly. I don't know why he was not confident in himself. He had such a great time. He had such a good life. Maybe it was too good. Is that possible? I mean, I don't know. We're going to see what happens here. I'm very curious to know what the hell is wrong with this life. Okay. When the summer ended, I cried a little. Yeah. It was such a great summer. I went on a vacation, saw lots of friends, played lots of games, and enjoyed life to its fullest. Congratulations. At least you got to. I've never gotten to really enjoy life to its fullest. Not completely. I've had little moments here and there. That's it. Never had life like this. This is incredible. Of course, I didn't know at the time that this was the last good summer in my life. But I still cried, as I always do after a joyful experience. comes to an end. Yeah, I know. It's a good cry, right? I do that too. That means that you have heart. That means that you're alive and you feel life, and that's a healthy thing. Okay. 8th grade began on a very mellow note, okay? For the first couple of months, I continued on with the life I've been living, and things seemed okay. The main people I hung out with at school were Alfred Graham, Gavin Dowd, and Bryce Miller. Alfred was just getting good at skateboarding, and he was starting to become popular with the skateboarders. He once brought his skateboard to school and landed a kickflip. The move I was never able to master in the past. Yeah, because you didn't keep going and keep working at it. You could have, definitely. Yeah, because you gave up, it says, yeah, I was secretly jealous, even though I insisted to everyone that I was no longer interested in skateboarding. Yeah, you gave up before you found out you could do more. You know, I know that you could have done it. And you could have been better than any of the people you saw doing it. I started to take more notice of the kids in lower grades, specifically the 7th graders. Okay, he's in 8th grade, right? There was one who came in from Topanga Elementary. So he's a lot, I turned 14 in October of my 8th grade year. So he's turning 14 in July after his school years are done. So he's younger than I was in my grades. Yeah, because my mother kept me in nursery school 2 years in a row instead of 1 year. I would have been younger. I was either going to be older or younger. I would have been turning up, okay, speaking of 8th grade, I would have been turning 14 during my 9th grade year, or I would have been turning 14 during my 8th grade year. And because my mother kept me in nursery school 2 years in a row, I turned 14 earlier than everybody else in October. Like, he's July, I was October. And I hated that, but yeah, I mean, I would have been really young. I was already petite and small. All right. Just trying to see where I was. Okay, so he's secretly jealous that he mastered those skateboarding tricks. Okay. All right, so he's taking notice of the kids in the lower grades. 7th graders. There was one who came in from Topanga Elementary, the older brother of one of George's friends. His name was Neil Davis. I observed the popular kids of 7th grade. In a way, they visually mimicked the popular kids of my own grade. They were all the same, though the 7th graders seemed a lot meaner. I noticed that Neil Davis was starting to be friends with them, even with the pretty girls. I would eventually develop a great envy towards him. Why not an admiration? Like, wow, he has such a way with the ladies. Let me observe. Let me study him. I mean, what is this envy? Like, what is that about? Another one was Lucky Radley, the black kid I played with in Father's neighborhood. He transferred to Pinecrest during that very year, and he immediately became popular with the pretty girls of his grade. I hated him for it. Why? I guess when you're narcissistic, right, you have to be the best and the baddest, and you can't accept that other people can be better than you. I mean, I don't understand it. Okay. I don't know. I mean, he doesn't sound exactly narcissistic. He just sounds like pretty normal. I mean, sensitive, hypersensitive even, but normal. Okay. Things were getting more intense every year we grew older, and I didn't want to grow up. He wanted to remain a child. Okay, because childhood was so wonderful, he didn't want it to end. I wanted to live the life I was comfortable with. I wanted to live in a world of fairness, and I tried not to accept that it would soon come to an end. Why does it have to come to an end? I mean, you can be an older kid, you know, in development, and life can still be okay. All right, let's keep going. The games I enjoyed playing at Planet Cyber were too powerful to run on my mother's computer, so Planet Cyber was the only place I could play them. That was until I asked my father to buy me Warcraft 3 to install on his powerful laptop. I got the Frozen Throne expansion to go with it, and once it was installed, I was able to play it on his laptop whenever he allowed me to. I thought it was really cool to actually play an online game from my own home. Father's house became a lot more fun after this, though I hated it when Sumaya set limits on my playtime. Hey, when was the baby born? Okay, so we're in 8th grade still. The baby was on the way in the spring or something, right? Beginning of the summer. So I guess she's not giving birth until another few months. Okay. When Father invited the Bubenheims over, Alex sometimes brought his friends, Gary and Aunt Jay twin. They had a son named Vincent, who was the same age as my sister and a good friend of Lucas. Vincent was kind-hearted and sweet. He was a kind-hearted and sweet little boy who was a bit overweight. I showed him Warcraft 3 on my father's computer. He was very interested in the game, and he would watch me for hours. He really looked up to me. We got along well. I'm sure he enjoyed that, right? I mean, okay. One day I was looking up things on the internet about Warcraft 3. That is when I found out about a new revolutionary Warcraft game coming out called World of Warcraft. I didn't think much of it at the time, ignorant of the effect it would have on me in my later life. Gradually, my friendship with John Joe, Charlie, and Elijah started to wane. They no longer came over as a group anymore. Our usual Friday sleepovers stopped happening as they got more busy with other things. Okay, be careful, Dean. What's this? Oh. What about yourself, Dean? Well, thank you. What about yourself?
I'll get them. Don't worry about you.
I mean,
You need your energy.
I get a little worried about food Dean gets from his mother's house. I'm worried they're gonna like poison us or something. You know, I've been through a lot. I've been through a lot of trauma that way. So, all right, I'm sure it's fine. I usually things that are poisoned are very, very spicy. So to camouflage the flavor of the poison. And this is not at all spicy. Nothing comes out of his mother's house spicy. It's really Dean's identical twin, Dennis, who's cooking now because his mother is bedridden and can't do anything.
Right.
So, yeah, I guess, you know, if there was anything poison in it, it would be very, very spicy. And it's not going to be. It's some spaghetti. Thank you, Dean. That's very thoughtful of you. I love you.
You're welcome.
You know I love you.
Hey, we love you. This way.
Okay. All right. I'm getting back to this. Okay. Okay, so our usual Friday sleepovers stopped happening as they got more busy with other things. John, Joe, and Charlie slowly started to get bored of Planet Cyber, which caused them to lose their interest in coming over every week. I continued to see them individually. Sometimes I would see Charlie and Elijah together, sometimes just Elijah, and sometimes just John Joe. Okay, that's pretty repetitive, isn't it? Due to them coming over less often, I began to walk to Planet Cyber alone. I never did this before because my friends came over so much we would go together. I would usually play Diablo 2, careful Dean, or Warcraft 3 there. For a time, I did this as a routine without getting bored. Sometimes I would meet John Joe there and we would have intense Warcraft 3 competitions with each other. After a few more weeks into autumn, I began to get a bit depressed over the fact that the good times I had with my main group of friends was fading away. Life changes. You know, the old good times fade away to make room for the new good times. That's the way life works. It's never static. Life is change, and you just have to let that happen and not get too attached to one particular way of being. Enjoy what there is to enjoy, right? That's in Nietzsche and Daishonin's writings. Enjoy what there is to enjoy. Enjoy what there... I forget the passage. One of my ex-boyfriends used to recite it every morning. In the old days, they had habits like that, reciting to the Gohansan passages from the writings of Nietzsche and Daishonin. Enjoy what there is to enjoy, or suffer what there is to suffer, enjoy what there is to enjoy. I forget the passage. Everybody who's a Nietzsche Buddhist who studies the Gosho or is like an old, is from the old days of Nietzsche and Buddhism knows the passage I'm trying to quote. It's good. And suffer what there is to suffer, enjoy what there is to, and always chant the words that all Nietzsche and Buddhists chant, and I don't do that, and I'm sure they're all telling me, you should do that. I just got food on the front of me. I always do that when I eat. I just always do. I'm terrible. All right. So he's depressed about, the good times with his main group of friends fading away. I started to walk to Planet Cyber alone just to reminisce such times. Sometimes I would stay there for hours into the night. I never thought I would get bored of the highly entertaining games there, but after playing them so much on my own, I was surprised that I was getting a bit bored. Okay. Good times always come to an end, and I always had a hard time accepting this fact. Yeah, they're no longer good times, and they're making way for new good times. There's always something new that's going to be just as enjoyable. That's the way life works. When something fades away, it's because there's something new coming in, and you want that new thing to be coming in. You can't, things are always shifting and moving. Okay. Maybe that's his problem, is that he wants things to stay the same. Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster. One time while I was alone at Planet Cyber, I saw an older teenager watching pornography. I saw in detail a video of a man having sex with a hot girl. The video showed him stick his penis inside a girl's vagina. I didn't know anything about sex at the time. I barely even knew what sex was. He's 13 years old. I was slowly starting to develop sexual feelings for hot girls, but I didn't know what to do with them. To see this video really traumatized me. I had no idea what I was seeing. I couldn't imagine human beings doing such things with each other. The sight was shocking, traumatizing, and arousing. All of these feelings mixed together took a great toll on me. I walked home and cried by myself for a bit. I felt too guilty about what I saw to talk to my parents about it. I was quite shaken for a few days. Wow, that's hard. See, I've never had that experience because I was forced to personally experience that when I was a baby. Since I was a baby, You know, isn't that sad? I've never known what it's like to live a beautiful, pure childhood, you know, and be that traumatized by, I mean, I have, okay, I am like a virgin. It's true. Like when I was in, I think I was in 6th grade, I answered the phone and it was some strange guy who started asking me questions about, you know, asked me if I wore pantyhose, and I said sometimes, and I don't know why I was answering questions of a stranger. And I don't know, he was talking about, oh, do you get hot? And I don't know what he was saying. He was saying all these weird things, and I remember being like, oh my God, I just hung up the phone. And yeah, it's true. I've been traumatized like that before. It was like, oh my God, you know, like I thought I was talking to, you know, having a normal conversation with some stranger on the phone. I mean, they called me and they were just acting weird. I mean, I didn't know it was a strange phone call until he started asking me personal sexual questions, and I remember feeling so traumatized and hanging up the phone and like telling my mother, and you know, I don't know, I guess she didn't really think it was a big deal. That's terrible, isn't it? My mother was supposed to be the pure parent that protected me, but she didn't really. Can you see? I'm kind of embarrassed. Look at that. That just happened. Yeah, so I guess I am like, I mean, I've had little moments. I just never had the experience of having an entire childhood up through 13, like totally pure. Nobody touched me. I mean, that is a beautiful thing. What a beautiful gift from the universe for him to have experienced that kind of a life. I never had such a luxury ever. I just have borrowed moments here and there, like a virgin. Okay, so he was quite shaken for a few days. This was among the very first glimpses I had of sex. Finding out about sex is one of the things that truly destroyed my entire life. Oh my God. Sex, the very word fills me with hate. Sex. Once I hit puberty, I would always want it like any other boy. I would always hunger for it. I would always covet it. I would always fantasize about it, but I would never get it. Not getting any sex is what will shape the very foundation of my miserable youth. This was a very dark day. Wow, so sad. I guess he had, I mean, every boy does, right? When they hit puberty, raging hormones, but I don't know. Sounds like it was pretty violent for him. Soon enough, I would have inevitably find out about what sex was, whether I saw that foul video or not. Boys at my school started talking about it. Connor Hanrahan and his friend Jordan Carlton one day told me exactly what happens when a man and a woman have sex. Finding out about sex was just the beginning of my horrific downfall. My father and mother arranged to change our routine back to 1 week, 1 week. Father wanted to spend more time with us, and it was agreed that this would be the way. I was angry about this because I felt satisfied with the way things were. I think you should ask your child what they want. And I hated that. I didn't see how it enabled Father to spend more time with us because he was always going away for work anyway. But alas, I had no choice in the matter, and the arrangement was set. This is how it would remain from that point on. My living arrangement wouldn't change again until I turned 18 and Sumaya kicks me out. Okay. So 1 week, 1 week, 1 week, 1 week. Okay, so not his father didn't just have him for weekends. It was back to 1 week at his mom's and 1 week at his dad's. Okay. When Christmas came, and he's in the 8th grade. This is Christmas of 8th grade. He's 13, still 13 years old. When Christmas came, I told Father that I would like a new computer game. Father took me out shopping for my new present. We first went to Comp USA on Victory Boulevard, but they didn't have a large selection of games. I was on the verge of just choosing to buy Diablo 2, a game I had already spent hours on at Planet Cyber, but then I decided that since Best Buy was just across the street, we should go and have a look at the games there. Okay. At Best Buy, I saw the game World of Warcraft. It had just come out a few weeks ago. I picked up the box and looked at it for a few minutes. The game looked amazing and alluring, so I decided to choose World of Warcraft as my Christmas present. I spent more time looking it over and reading about it on the way home. The only computer I could play World of Warcraft on was my father's laptop, but Father was also always using his laptop for work. I had to wait a long time to get a chance to play it. After reading the game manual, I got extremely excited to play it. It was a whole new type of game for me, and is it MMORPG? Is that pronounced some way? I don't think so. I think it's just letters that would enable me to make my own character in a huge online fantasy world. And it was a world I was already familiar with through playing Warcraft 3. This game was 100 times bigger than any game I've played in the past. The more I read about the game, the more anticipated I became. After almost a month went by after getting World of Warcraft, I was finally able to play it. Almost a month, huh? I made a WoW account with my father, War of Warcraft account with my father, and then I created my first character, a night elf druid. It really blew my mind. My first experience with War of Warcraft was like stepping into another world of excitement and adventure. Is it called WoW, or what do they say, WOW or WoW? It was a video game world, but they made it so realistic that it was like living another life, a more exciting life. My life was getting more and more depressing at that point, and War of Warcraft would fill in the void, and that might be a mistake, huh? Because it's not reality. It felt refreshing and relieving. I was only able to play it for a few hours for my first session. It was all I would think about when I wasn't able to play it. Mother didn't have a good enough computer to run World of Warcraft, so I felt a bit frustrated because of that. I thought of how awesome it would be if Planet Cyber had the game, but I doubted that it did. One afternoon, I walked to Planet Cyber with my World of Warcraft discs and asked them if I can install my discs into one of their computers. The owner told me the game was already being installed, and I was thrilled to hear those words. It wasn't ready yet, however, and I had to wait. I kept going back to Planet Cyber every day to wait for it and played other games there while they were still processing it. It was a fun wait, and I knew I will eventually be able to play it. Finally, after spending 3 days at Planet Cyber waiting, it was ready. I loaded the game and logged onto my account. I was completely ecstatic. I spent all of my free time in the next few days playing it. The owner of Planet Cyber came to know me because of this series of events, and he named me his best customer. It must have been pretty expensive. You know, it wasn't just $1 an hour. I mean, the regular rate was a lot higher, right? I invited Charlie over, and he came with Stephen, an old friend from Topanga Elementary, whom I hadn't seen for a while. I found out that they both had their own War of Warcraft accounts, and we went to Planet Cyber to play it together. I made a new character on their server just to play with them, though I would eventually discard this character. Hey, I just want to see something. Okay. Huh, I thought I... Okay. Yeah, just letting you know. Yeah, I just said something in the comments. There's nobody, I mean, I don't think there's anybody here. I haven't completely checked, but I'm used to doing these all by my lonesome. Let's see, I don't know if I can. Just, I can't see anything. Okay. Yeah, there's not many people here right now, but just had to check. Just and I had to update. I thought I had put in the chat that you know, if you have any questions, just put them in the chat and give me an opportunity to answer them live. Okay? I don't mind. I really want to answer questions. It's hard to know what to. Well, we have this that I'm trying to get done with and read. Okay. Okay, so I'm just trying to see where I was. All right, so it was up here. So he made a new character on their server just to play with them, though he would eventually discard this character. This is when so they all went to Planet Cyber to play together and play World of Warcraft together, and he discarded the character he created for that purpose. I saw Charlie only a few more times after that. Elijah was busy with some life problems and stopped coming over. John Joe simply vanished from my life at this point for no particular reason. I can't recall the exact last time I saw him, but it was around this period. My mother decided to move to an apartment in Woodland Hills. I reacted indignantly. An apartment? I had never lived in an apartment before. Yeah, I never did either until I moved to New York as an adult. And I as a kid, I always wanted to live in an apartment. I thought they were so cool. I had always lived in houses. I had never lived, okay, so he's saying, I had never lived in an apartment before, and I always thought of apartments as being poor and low class. I would be embarrassed to admit it to anyone. Oh, he's such a snob. Oh my gosh. The apartment building was called the Renaissance Apartments, near the Warner Center area of Woodland Hills. We moved into a 2-bedroom apartment. Mother knew I was too old to share a room with my sister, so she gave me the 2nd bedroom, and she and my sister shared the master bedroom. Okay. That's a nice change, since he always got second choice. At least that's how he perceived it. Leaving the blue house on Glade Avenue was hard. I had so many good times with my friends there. And to move, and it's funny because he was so, it was a seedy section of the valley, and he didn't like that, right, at first, but he had a lot of good times there, huh? And it was right near the planet Cyber, yeah, or Cyber Planet, whichever. And to move out of it at the very time that I stopped seeing those friends, it was quite emotional. I cried on our last day there. My mother's new apartment was not walking distance from Planet Cyber, and I was a bit embarrassed to show that I lived in an apartment, so I stopped seeing any friends. Elijah was the last person in the group who I saw. I was at Planet Cyber, and he tapped me on the shoulder. It was a random meeting. The two of us talked for a bit about the new Halo 2 game, and I showed him my War of, what is it? World of Warlock? What is it? War of Warcraft. Okay. Sorry, I don't play these games. I don't know. I should have remembered that, but I don't. World of Warcraft. Okay, so eventually I lost all contact with Charlie, John Joe, and Elijah. The friends I had such good times with for the last 2 years were no longer my friends. They were lost to me. So he lost a lot of he because his mother moved into an apartment. He was too embarrassed to have friends come over, so he lost a lot of friends. I mean, his friendships were lost. Okay. I also stopped seeing Philip and Jeffrey. They simply just forgot about me, I assumed. The only friend who remained to me was James Ellis. The upside of moving to the apartment was that my mother acquired high-speed internet. Okay, that's good. I was able to play World of Warcraft on her computer along with Halo 2 on Xbox Live. This was the point when my social life ended completely. And he was totally immersed in his game reality. I would never have a satisfying social life ever again. But he was very socially adept. He had many friends. It's not like he didn't have social skills. It was the beginning of a very lonely period of my life in which my only social interactions would be online through video games, with the sole exception being my friendship with James. The ability, I don't have any friends. I don't have any other than my husband. I mean, that's the only, and Elizabeth, and I don't really count her as a friend. She doesn't treat me like a friend, or even, forget about family. And then my babies, my animal babies, that's it. I don't have anybody in my life. So I don't know. I don't know that's pretty, I know most people have families and friends and all over the place. But sometimes life puts you in situations and you don't have that luxury. It's a luxury to have so much support everywhere you turn. Total luxury. I mean, all you need really is one person, but, if anything happens to that one person, then you don't have anybody. I don't know. I mean, you do need something, and I am so telepathic. I have a lot of people that support me telepathically, and I think that's why I survive and am as healthy as I am, because I'm so telepathic, and I have confidence in my connections with people I haven't seen forever, and I know that at the right time I will see them and they will be in my life, and I just know. And so I'm not lonely. I don't know, I kind of consider all that kind of support to be a luxury, honestly. Okay. It was the beginning of a very lonely period in my life in which my only social interactions would be online through video games, with the sole exception being my friendship with James. At least he had James, and he had his parents, he had his sister. I mean, I don't know. I guess the baby hasn't been born yet. I understand when you're a kid, it is different. When I was a kid, I had more support in a way. Because you go to school, you have more people around you all the time. The ability to play video games with people online temporarily filled in the social void. And he's 13 years old in 8th grade. I got caught up in it, and I was too young and naive to realize the severity of how far I had fallen. I was too scared to accept it, this loss of social life, so he was upset that he no longer had so many friends every day around him. I mean, he had a lot of friends. He was like very socially active, And I guess it was a shock to his system to no longer have those social interactions. I mean, he had people around him, his parents, sibling, I don't know. He went to school, right? I was too scared to accept it. This loss of a social life, coupled with the advent of puberty, caused me to die a little inside. So he had all these feelings and urges, and he couldn't do anything with them because there was no one around him to do it with, right? Is that the situation? It was too much for me to handle, and I stopped caring about my life and my future. I even stopped caring about what people thought of me. I hid myself away in the online world of Warcraft, a place where I felt comfortable and secure. Okay, yeah, that probably is not the healthiest situation. Okay, here we go to a bigger, this is, let me zoom out a little. Is that too big? I guess, all right. I don't know, I don't know if you can read it. Yeah, it's fine, I guess. Stuck in the void, age 13 to 17. Okay, and I'm on 41. Okay, I'm going to keep going. I know I have to keep going. I know I can't stop. I mean, it just seems like so much. Okay, stuck in the void, age 13 to 17. And let me see, how long have I been on? Okay, I was quite late. It was, you know, after 7. 10. I've been on a little, like an hour and 40 minutes, would I say? Yeah, hour and 40 minutes. Okay, so it's 9. Yeah, and I hear Elizabeth. I think she's okay. Let me just pause and check on her, okay? Forgive me. I'll be right back, okay? Okay, I'm back. As you can see. All right. I got all these babies around me here. Hi, Nini. Hi, baby. All right. I just want to show you on camera. And Lily's here, down here. Right, Lily? Yes. All right. Oh, she wants to be on camera. You want to be on camera. Oh. I love you. Oh. All right, that's Lily, and Wispy's the kitty, and Mikey. Hi, Mikey. All right, let's get going. Okay, see, look at, we've got some blacked out classified sections. Okay, that means we're making progress, because I remember when I looked through this document, these blacked out areas didn't happen till towards the end, but looking at the page number, it doesn't look like it's towards the end at all. All right. All right, let's do this. I'm going to be going on for till 10 Eastern, about 10 Eastern, and then we're going to stop this live stream, and I'll continue on as I can. I don't know. Let's just go on till 10. That's like about 49 more minutes. Stuck in the void, age 13 to 17. James Ellis also acquired Xbox Live with Halo 2. I started to play it with him online, and our friendship reignited after being stale for the previous year. We would meet up online after school or on Saturday mornings. The two of us battled on Halo 2 over the internet, just like we did with our Nintendo 64 games when we were children. James would be my only friend throughout the next depressing, lonely period of my life. That is so terrible. My friendship with James helped me cope with the loneliness. The very few fun times we would have were like a light in the darkness for me. What about James? I mean, James, was he so depressed about things? I'm curious. Now that I was able to play World of Warcraft at my mother's house with no limitations, aside from school and homework, I became very addicted to the game and my character in it. It was all I cared about. I was so immersed in the game that I no longer cared about what people thought of me. I only saw school as something that took time away from World of Warcraft. I became very bored at school, mainly due to the fact that I was still the invisible quiet kid. To alleviate this boredom, I started to act weird and annoying to people just to gain attention. Okay. I became known as the weird kid at Pinecrest, and people started to make fun of me. I'm sorry. Sorry, baby. But I didn't care. Well, obviously you did care. I had my online games to distract me from the harsh realities of life that I was too scared to face. The only time I did care was when a group of popular 7th grade girls started teasing me, which hurt a lot. One of these girls was blank, a pretty blonde girl, blank. She must have thought I was an ultimate loser. So I guess this girl got her personal information or defamatory description blacked out. She must have thought I was an ultimate loser. I hated her so much, and I will never forget her. I started to hate all girls because of this. I saw them as mean, cruel, and heartless creatures that took pleasure from my suffering. Wow. At Father's house, I was forced to change my bedroom to the downstairs room that Tracy once occupied. My old bedroom was to be given to my baby brother. Oh, he got the nice room, right? I guess that was next to the master suite. And yeah, I guess the baby had to be close to them. Okay. Sumaya was due to give birth to him very soon. I was quite annoyed at this. That room was the room that made me so enthusiastic about moving to that house. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how they could have solved that problem, you know, because, I mean, the baby has to be close by. I mean, at first, the baby could be in your room and... Yeah, I understand. It's kind of a difficult situation because, yeah, you don't want the baby all the way downstairs, right? But I don't know. Okay, so Father and Sumaya thought moving me was the best solution. The new baby would get a room close to them and I would have the much bigger downstairs room. Okay, it was big. When I moved to the downstairs room, I slowly agreed that it was the sensible thing to do. My new room was twice the size of my old one. Well, great. I still had my own bathroom. Oh, good. And I also had the hallway that led to it. Wow. So that's not bad. Technically, I had the whole bottom floor of the 3-story house to myself. The only bad thing about this was that I would get scared to walk down those stairs at night when it's dark. The light switch was at the bottom of the stairs. I've always been afraid of the dark. Okay. Which stairs is he talking about? I know it's the downstairs room. You mean like below the main floor? I guess it's like down. Okay. All right, so to walk down, they could have like gotten somebody to put a light switch at the top of the stairs so he wouldn't have to go down in the dark. Sumaya gave birth to a newborn baby boy, and they named him Jazz. Oh, I know somebody else named Jazz. Oh, well, was going to be named Jazz, but it was going to be a girl. It happened during Father's Week. So he was part of it. While Father and Sumaya were at the hospital, Alex Bubenheim picked us up from school, and we stayed at his house in the afternoons. This occurred for 3 days, and finally, on the day of the birth, Father showed up to announce the birth of Jazz. We had a little celebration, and the song Jessie's Girl played from Alex's sound system. Whenever I heard that song in the future, I would always think of that day. It was an exciting day. I actually had a brother. It was hard to believe. Technically, he is my half-brother, but I would always term him as my brother. Yeah, that's natural. I wasn't as impacted by his birth as I expected myself to be, possibly because I was so caught up in my own personal and emotional changes that I was going through at that stage. Spring break came up, the first break from school since I started playing World of Warcraft. I considered myself extremely fortunate that I was at my mother's house for that week. I disliked being at Father's house because I had so many limits on the amount of time I could play my game. On the onset of spring break, I planned to spend the whole time on World of Warcraft, leveling up my character and forgetting about my horrible school life. Okay. I invited James to come over to my mother's apartment for the first time. We played a round of Halo 2 and then I decided to show him World of Warcraft. He knew nothing about it. I thought they played together all that time. Who is he talking about? A different guy? No. Yeah. I thought they played World of Warcraft together before that point. Okay. He knew nothing about it. I was very eager to get him into it. War of Warcraft was his kind of game after all. He seemed very interested. We went to Father's house for Easter Sunday. He took us to a party held by some new friends of his, the Thompsons, alongside the Bubenheims. The Thompsons became frequent guests at my father's dinner parties, so he had a lot of dinner parties. They consisted of John Thompson, a successful film producer, and his wife Tatiana. They had 3 children: Isabella, the oldest daughter, who was 2 years younger than me, and the twins, Josh and Alessandra, were the same age as my sister. On the first day, me and my sister met them. Be careful, Dean.
Yeah, good baby. You're a good baby. All right? Good baby.
On the first day, me and my sister met them, and I believe it was on that Easter Sunday. We played with them splendidly in their backyard, but soon after they came over a few more times, I began to have uneasy feelings of nervousness and fear around the 2 girls, mainly because I thought all girls hated me. The way I was treated by girls at my school played a big part in my resentment towards all of them during this time. This resentment would only grow larger the more I am treated unfairly by the female gender. Well, I don't know. I think you need to create good experiences with the female gender, and maybe you'd have a different result. Mother took us to the premiere of Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. As a huge Star Wars fan, this was a big day for me. Episode 3 would complete the whole Star Wars saga. It was the most anticipated movie. To be able to see it before anyone else made me feel special. I really liked the character Anakin Skywalker, and I was amazed to see his epic transformation into Darth Vader on the high-quality big screen. Finally, having something to brag about, I told everyone at school the next day that I went to the premiere because my mother is friends with George Lucas. The problem was that most 8th graders thought of Star Wars as being a nerdy interest, and they didn't really care. I was left frustrated and disappointed by their reaction. Okay. As middle school approached its ultimate end, I was having a miserable time there. I was extremely unpopular, widely disliked, and viewed as the weirdest kid in school. I had to act weird in order to gain attention. I was tired of being the invisible shy kid. Infamy is better than total obscurity. That sounds like the reason or the beginnings of a trend. Explaining everything, huh? Are you okay, Dean?
Yeah.
Okay. Take care. I mean, be careful. Infamy is better than total obscurity. The teasing I received was bittersweet. I felt horrible to be teased and bullied. It caused me a lot of pain and anger, but at the same time, I got a kick out of getting so much attention. It felt good to be confident enough to pick fights with the popular skateboarder kids. It was either that or continue to be ignored by everyone like I was in 6th and 7th grade. I don't know. I thought he described a really good 6th grade and 7th grade, didn't he? I mean, he wasn't invisible or ignored. He exaggerates. I never knew how to gain positive attention, only negative. That's not true. You got a lot of positive attention your whole childhood for 13 years. What are you talking about? My experience during middle school really darkened my view of the world. And it would only get darker from then on as I suffered more and more. The way I was treated by girls at this time, especially by that evil bitch blank, sparked an intense fear of girls. All right, so there was a certain stupid, intense, rude girl who tormented you. Okay. The funny part of this is that I had a secret crush on blank. She was the first girl. Okay, so he had originally had a crush on her, probably, right? She was the first girl I ever had a crush on, and I never admitted it to anyone. To be teased and ridiculed by the girl I had a crush on wounded me deeply. The world that I grew up thinking was bright and blissful was all over. I was living in a depraved world, and I didn't want to accept it. I didn't want to give any thought to it. This is why I immersed myself entirely into my online games like World of Warcraft. I felt safe there. Yeah, and it's not reality. All right. Trying to get this larger. All right. I was so obsessed with playing World of Warcraft that I never gave much serious thought to the fact that I would have to go to high school soon. As the end of middle school neared, the prospects started to loom over me more and more. At one moment, I pictured what my life in high school would be like, based on how things have been for me in middle school. It was not a bright picture. I didn't want to have to deal with the cruelty of girls in high school, and I imagined that it would be much worse than anything I've ever experienced. I begged my parents to send me to Crespi Carmelite High School, a Catholic all-boys school. Father took me there for a tour, and it didn't look so bad. It was a very prestigious private school. At least I wouldn't have to deal with any fear of girls there. We submitted an application. A few weeks later, I received the news that I had been accepted to Crespi. Wispy.
Hi, baby boy. Hi, baby boy.
He's always got upper respiratory stuff. Ever since before I brought him inside, he's a long-haired kitty. They tend to have that. All right. 8th grade graduation was a nightmare. Everyone was required to go up on stage and speak to the whole audience. We had to say our name and tell everyone what school we were planning on going to. The audience consisted of all the students' families, as well as any siblings or friends who wished to attend. Both of my parents came, as well as Sumaya, Khadija, my sister, and even my baby brother Jazz. It took place in the evening. As I lined up, I could feel myself shaking. I was scared even to speak in front of a classroom. To speak in a microphone to hundreds of people was too much. I didn't understand how everyone else seemed to be fine with it. I envied their bravery. Admire. Why don't you just admire it? Why do you have to envy everything? When my name was called, I didn't want to go, but it was required of me, and I pushed myself to do it. I walked up to the microphone and nervously said, "My name is Elliot, and I plan on going to Crespi High School." I heard my own voice in the speakers and saw everyone staring at me. It made me cringe. I quickly walked away for the next person to go up. It was over. 8th grade was over. Middle school was over. I said a few farewells to the people I knew. Alfred Graham and Bryce Miller told me they were going to Crespi as well. Okay. At least I will know 2 people at Crespi on the first day, I thought. The thought of going to high school sent a shiver through me. I put it in the back of my mind to deal with later. So he's going to an all-boy high school. Definite mistake when you don't have good social skills with girls. I mean, this is probably what crippled him, going to an all-boys school like that. All right. After the ceremony, I said goodbye to the principal, and she congratulated me on completing middle school. On the way home, my family seemed very proud of me. I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel like I accomplished anything. Middle school, though it started out okay in the first 2 years, and it ended up being a disaster. I don't see how that was a disaster. He's so overdramatic. It was, I guess, a lot of how he sizes up middle school has to do with that one interaction with one person. I mean, it's not one interaction. I guess it was a number of interactions with exactly one person. The girl he used to have a crush on, who was very pretty. I don't know why she has to have that much power over his life. For the summer break, I planned on spending the whole time playing World of Warcraft and forgetting about everything else. I reached the highest level on my World of Warcraft character, level 60. I actually considered this to be a huge and important accomplishment. I joined a guild with my character and made a few online friends through it. I couldn't wait to play my character further, exploring everything the game had to offer and collecting more armor pieces and trinkets. And just a week into my summer break, my mother told me that Father and Sumaya were going to Morocco and I would be forced to go with them. This news upset me tremendously, and I then asked how long this trip would be, and I was told it would be 8 weeks. 8 weeks! I could not believe what I was hearing. I threw a big tantrum. Okay, so he throws tantrums, right? He's been doing this for years. End of 8th grade, going into high school. For one thing, I was never enthusiastic about Morocco. The country is very backwards, and that made me very uncomfortable. They didn't even have the latest video games. Oh, horrors. And to be forced to go there for 8 weeks, that's 2 months, that would take up the entire summer and the first 2 weeks of high school. Oh, you mean he was going to be late for high school? Like I was late for kindergarten. I was 2 weeks late. And it looks like he was 2 weeks late before also, wasn't he, for school? Yeah, that's not cool to do to a kid. It was even longer than the last time we went, and I thought that was too long. I wouldn't be able to play War of Warcraft at all for 2 whole months. The prospect devastated me. That might have been partly why they were thinking it'd be good for him and forced him to go. I begged my mother to not let me go, but Father and Sumaya insisted on bringing me in Georgia, and my mother was probably looking forward to having 2 months without children to look after. The decision was made. The plans were set. They already had a plane ticket ready for me. I was going to Morocco. I bet they all knew I would protest against going, which is why they told me last minute. The last day of Mother's Week was the day before we would depart. Mother took me and my sister to a barbecue at the house of her friends, Alan and Rebecca. I was very sad for the whole day. I didn't do anything at the barbecue except swing on their swing in misery. When we got home, I played World of Warcraft for the very last time. I took advantage of the few hours I had left on it. My mother allowed me to stay up until midnight playing. I acquired a very nice piece of armor for my character. I didn't want to leave it. When we arrived at Father's house the next day, I heard even more upsetting news. Father had to work for the first few weeks of the summer, so he would be joining us in the middle of the trip. Oh, wow. He's stuck with his stepmother. It was only Sumaya taking us to Morocco. I always hated traveling with Sumaya. She made everything so difficult. Baby Jazz will be coming along with us, of course, and the stress of looking after a whelping baby while traveling will put Sumaya in a bad mood. I was not happy at all. As I expected, the journey there was a disaster. Baby Jazz cried a lot during the trip, and Sumaya wasn't at her best of moods. We didn't take first class. We had to make 3 stops, once in Michigan, again in Paris, and yet again in Casablanca, before taking a small plane to Tangier. It was a miserable journey, the complete opposite of the great time I had a year ago on the trip to Malaysia. We took a taxi to Khadijah's house right after we arrived. Khadijah went home to Morocco on a different plane a few days before us, and she was already settled in. After unpacking at Khadijah's house, we walked to Sumaya's father's huge house where I met Ayman again. I remembered playing with Ayman on my last trip to Morocco. He grew up a lot since then. To my dismay, he was taller and stronger than me, despite being 2 years younger. I was always short and physically weak. That's how it's been all my life. We instantly became friends again after catching up a little, and I played hide-and-seek tag with him and his 2 younger brothers. I disliked having to be in Morocco for the whole summer, but I tried to make the best of it. Okay, good. Ayman made the time I spent there more fun. We often went out by ourselves to explore the city of Tangier. Ayman knew where everything was, and Sumaya trusted him to show me around. Georgia sometimes came with us. We had a few good times together, and we got along well. All right, so it wasn't too bad so far. The Thompsons joined us in Morocco a couple weeks after we arrived. Georgia was happy that Alessandra, Josh, and Isabella were there to play with her. I was not happy about it. I was so scared of girls at that time that I kept my distance from Alessandra and Isabella. I didn't want to admit to Ayman that I was scared of girls, though. That would have been embarrassing. He had a sister. Why was he scared of girls? So I just told him that I thought they were too immature. He didn't understand this because I myself was very immature at the time. Yeah, it sounds like it. For my 14th birthday, Sumaya organized a small party at her father's house. Most of the guests were her Moroccan friends, and some of them didn't even know that the party was for my birthday. Oh, that's pretty pathetic. I was a bit annoyed by this. They had a cake arranged for me, and when it was brought out, everyone gathered to wish me a happy birthday. That would be the last time I spent my birthday with more people than just my family. I was amazed that I was actually 14. 14 sounded like such a big number. I didn't feel 14. I still felt like a kid, and in appearances I was. And in all appearances I was. Father couldn't even make it for my birthday. Well, that's pretty sad. I was a bit upset about this. He came a few days after it. Once he arrived, we toured around Tangier and a few other areas as a family. Khadijah and Ayman sometimes came along with us. Sumaya's father owned a house on the beach, and we usually went there for beach trips. I caught a virus while swimming in the ocean once, which caused me to get extremely ill. I spent a whole week of the vacation in bed, aching and vomiting. I was never that ill before in my life. Whenever I would think about Morocco in the future, I thought about that horrid experience, that week. Okay, 1 week. At one time towards the end of the trip, when I had a sleepover with Eamon at Sumaya's father's house, he showed me some European porn videos in the middle of the night. Oh, I could observe the act of sex in much more detail than that one glimpse I had at Planet Cyber. I didn't want to look, but my curiosity got the better of me. To see a video of human beings doing such weird and unspeakable things with each other revolted him. I couldn't understand what I was seeing, and yet I noticed I was feeling aroused. I felt desire to do those things, to have sex with naked women I saw in the video. It was a funny feeling that overwhelmed my whole body. I could... God, he goes into such detail. I could feel my penis getting hard. This is when I noticed that I was finally going through puberty. Heaven save me. Oh my gosh. The trip was way too long, and towards the end I felt depressed and homesick. All I wanted was to go back home and play World of Warcraft, and yet I had to accept that once I did get home, I had to start high school right away. I suppose that being able to play World of Warcraft again would make up for that, though, and it would sure beat staying in Morocco any longer. I was growing tired of it. 14 years old. To 14. We're getting there. What is it? 8 more years. And epilogue. I felt a wave of relief when we arrived back in the United States. We had to travel separately from father again because he had a different flight schedule, but it wasn't that bad on the way back because I was looking forward to playing World of Warcraft again. Okay, I'm about to fall down here. Okay. I don't know. Wait, I just want to see how. Okay. I only had one free day before I had to start school. When I got back to Mother's house, I gave her a big hug. That was the longest time I had been away from Mother. Wow, never before, huh? After that, I immediately asked if I can go on her computer and play my game. I logged onto my character, which was just the way I left it 2 months ago. I said hi to all of my online friends and tried to catch up on everything. The dreaded day arrived all too soon. I had to start high school. School had already begun while I was still in Morocco, so I would be the new kid again. That made it so much worse. My father drove me there on the first day. When we got there, I was intimidated by all the huge high school boys. Yeah, I'm sure. That's always hard for boys, freshman boys. As a freshman girl, you're excited. You're like, yeah, now I get to be with men, you know? And I cried in the car for a few minutes, telling my father that I was too scared to get out. At least he's honest with him. I had to go, and eventually I did. We walked to the main office where I ran into Bryce Miller. We greeted each other before I was led up to join my first class of the day. Alfred Graham was in that class, and he helped me settle in. Now, it's an all-boys school, right? So there's no girls. Okay. And I think that's an issue. I think that really contributed to his problem. During lunchtime, Alfred showed me around the whole school. I started to feel a lot more comfortable. He introduced me to some of the other freshmen. In the courtyard, I met Pascal and his clique of friends. I immediately took a disliking to them. Pascal was cocky and popular, so I felt intimidated. He was like the Crespi equivalent of Robert Morgan. As I met more people, I ran into Keaton Weber. I didn't expect to find any more people I knew at Crespi. It really took me by surprise. I hadn't seen Keaton since he left Topanga Elementary at the end of 4th grade. Keaton was still the arrogant jerk he always was at Topanga, and he had his own clique of skateboarder friends such as Andy Musa and Aaron Amon. As I expected, I failed to make any new friends. Why? And that's because he didn't, you know, what you expect is what you get, guy. All right, Lily. All right, Lily. Okay, I was so overwhelmed by the brutality of the world that I just didn't care anymore. Give up too soon. On the very first week, I had my first experience of true bullying, not just the teasing I had at Pinecrest. Some horrible 12th graders saw me as a target because I looked like a 10-year-old and I was physically weak. They threw food at me during lunchtime and after school. Oh my gosh. It enraged me, but I was too scared to do anything about it. What kind of horrible, depraved people would poke fun at a boy younger than them who has just entered high school? I thought to myself. Yeah, good point. Just understand they're like mentally retarded or something to do something like that. There's a lot of mentally retarded people in the world, you know. I don't know. I don't think a lot of people understand that you can be a high functioning mentally retarded person. You don't have to be stupid, you know. You just have to lack, here I'm trying to get in the center here. You just have to lack a part of your brain to be technically retarded, you know. And people who lack heart are retarded. Okay, they are mentally retarded. That is mental retardation. You don't have to have a low IQ to be mentally retarded. You can have a high IQ and be an asshole, and you're retarded too. All right. So feel sorry for them. Just feel sorry for them. Yeah. Don't let them push you around or let them push around anyone. Yeah, that makes me mad too. But that's not healthy. That's not alpha male behavior, in my view. I mean, I don't know. I don't like alpha males anyway, but that's being mentally retarded. After the first few weeks of high school, I concluded that my time at Crespi would not be pleasant at all. Well, I could have told you that. Going to an all-boys school is not going to... Running away from your problem is not going to solve it. You know, when you have a problem, you got to face it head on. Or it's going to get to worse and worse with time. You got to face it head on. You know, I know you don't want to force anything, but, you know, running away from girls to an all-boys school was not the answer for you. Since you struggled with your social skills with girls... your parents should have made sure you went to a co-ed school, you know. I withdrew further into the world of Warcraft, neglecting my homework and spending all of my free time playing it. As a late birthday present, Father bought me a new laptop that was able to run World of Warcraft. Wow, that's great. It wasn't a very powerful laptop, but it performed adequately. This enabled me to have more time playing my game. During Father's Week, Sumaya was always on my back about how much time I spent on World of Warcraft, but since my mom was on the bottom floor... Oh, my room. I was thinking, Mom, what? But since my room was on the bottom floor, secluded from the rest of the house, I was able to sneak as much time on it as I could. While I was playing War of Warcraft after dinner at Mother's house once, I heard my sister watching the new show Avatar, The Last Airbender, on the television. I decided to check it out. I soon found myself really enjoying it. By the way, I saw some kind of Avatar movie in the theater, and it was so gorgeous. I just thought it was amazing. I decided to check it out. I soon found myself really enjoying it. It was a magnificent story set in a fantasy world where people can control the power of the elements. Once I watched the first episode, I was hooked on the story. Prince Zuko, or Zuko, was my favorite character. He was a banished prince who was trying to regain his rightful place in the world. Sounds familiar. I always related to him. Avatar, The Last Airbender, became my favorite TV show. My mother informed me that she was just on the phone with Artie Ellis. My mother informed me that she was just on the phone with Artie Ellis, and he told her that James now played World of Warcraft. I was very pleased to hear this. I thought he already did. Okay, so he introduced him to it, and then he started playing it on his own. Okay. I could now share my greatest interest in the world with my good friend, my only friend. I then went over to James's house for a sleepover, which I hadn't done for a while. He showed me his War of Warcraft character who was only level 20. We weren't on the same server, so we couldn't play it together. The only way would be for one of us to start over, and we were too immersed in our characters to do that. I was fine with that. James was really fascinated by my level 60 character, and most of the time he would just watch me play anyway. We also played a lot of Halo 2 together. Having these common interests with James reminded me of the good old days when we were children, when we were both interested in skateboarding and before that Pokemon. This nostalgic experience provided a small respite from, is that how you say it? Respite from my sufferings at school. Yeah, with an E at the end, that would be a long I, or respite. My life at Crespi got even worse. Alfred and Bryce apparently told everyone how weird I was at Pinecrest, and people in my own grade started to tease me. They found out that I didn't like being called a skateboarder, and it was true. Because I failed to become good at skateboarding, yeah, because you stopped doing it, I developed a hatred for the sport, and whenever someone called me a skateboarder, it reminded me of my failure, and I got very angry. You only have yourself to blame. You would have gotten really good. I mean, you already were really good. You just were too hard on yourself, comparing you to kids who had started much earlier than you, and you could have caught up and surpassed them. I know you could have. The whole school started calling me it just to anger me, along with other insulting names. They teased me because I was scared of girls, calling me names like faggot. People also liked to steal my belongings and run away in an attempt to get me to chase after them. Now, this is an all-boys school. There's no women, there's no girls here. Okay. And I did chase after them in a furious rage, but I was so little and weak that they thought it was comical. I hated everyone at that school so much. Hey, careful, baby. Careful. All right. All right, baby. All right. I got to a point where I had to wait in a quiet corner for the hallways to clear before I could walk to class. I also took long routes around the school to avoid bullies. My parents began to consider not letting me continue there after 9th grade. I don't think that was the right school to send him to. When winter break came, I felt like I had just landed on a peaceful island after swimming through a horrific storm. It was such a fine relief. The break was to last for 3 weeks, and I was sorely disappointed that 2 of them would be at Father's house. Well, only one was at Mother's. I hated being at Father's house because Samaya became more and more suspicious of how much time I spent playing World of Warcraft, and she would place limits on my playtime whenever she caught me playing it. I wasn't able to do my 5-hour-long events to collect rare armor pieces for my character while I was at my father's house. It was during this winter break that I experienced my first masturbation and ejaculation. Wow, he is sharing so much. Okay. And he's what? This is winter break in 9th grade. Okay, so he's 14. He's not yet 15. Wow, he is a late bloomer, I think. Okay, so it was during this winter break that I experienced my first masturbation and ejaculation. It was one of the most peculiar and memorable experiences of my life. At this point, I was officially going through the stages of puberty, and I had lots of sexual urges. I often fantasized about hot, naked girls while rubbing my penis against my mattress at night. Ooh, okay. One time while doing this, I felt an intense stirring numbness all around my fully erect penis. Wow, this is like pornography. And it extended all over my body. I really hope it's, I mean, I'm reading algorithm. I'm reading a manifesto, okay? We are studying this. This is commentary. This is study. This is for educational purposes. This is all this is. This is a document I am studying and commenting on for study purposes. Okay? For educational purposes. All right. At this point, I was officially going through the stages of puberty, and I had lots of sexual urges. I often fantasized about... Okay, I already read that. Okay, so he felt a stirring numbness, and it extended all over his body. Okay, it felt magical and ecstatic. Like ecstasy, right? And I kept rubbing my penis on the mattress. That was when the orgasm happened. I couldn't believe how much pleasure I felt from that. Okay, so you have a new joy in life. Okay, life is not all that bad, right? I looked down at my penis to see that my semen had poured out all over it like a volcanic eruption of white sticky fluid. What was happening to me? I thought to myself with nervous excitement. It was like nothing I had ever seen or experienced before. Something completely out of my world. I felt really guilty afterwards, so I refrained from telling anyone about it. Okay, you're telling us about it now. Well, yeah. Okay. So, of course, I started to masturbate on a regular basis. At first, I only did it by rubbing my penis on my bed. This is interesting to know what boys do. I mean, I guess this is for educational purposes, algorithm. And commentary. But it eventually escalated to looking at pictures of girls online while rubbing my penis against my pants, fantasizing about doing sexual things with them. I didn't know how to access any porn sites, so I would just browse regular websites until I found a picture of a hot girl to masturbate to. Yeah, back in the day, I mean, boys didn't have the internet to do that. Okay. I developed a very high sex drive, and it would always remain like this. This was the start of hell for me. Going through puberty utterly doomed my existence. It condemned me to live a life of suffering and unfulfilled desires. Well, not really, if, you know, you're you know, you're masturbating, you're, you know, I mean, you feel that great orgasm, right? I mean, what is so bad about that? I know you don't have the girl, but you have the experience, and really that's most of it. So he says, going through puberty utterly doomed my existence. It condemned me to live a life of suffering and unfulfilled desires. Even at that young age, was it 14? I felt depressed because I wanted sex, yet I felt unworthy of it. Unworthy. So he felt unworthy of it. I didn't think I was ever going to experience sex in reality, and I was right. I never did. I was finally interested in girls, but there was no way I could ever get them. And so my starvation began. It sounds like it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. He just had no... Okay, let's go to 15 years old, and then we'll be done with this live stream, okay? Yeah, so he hasn't turned 15 yet. He is still 14 here. I mean, the reason God invented masturbation was so that you could, you know, enjoy yourself. I mean, even if it's not with the girl you're fantasizing about, I mean, it, you know, you still have the experience. I don't know why it's such a horrible thing to not, I don't know. It doesn't have, I mean, I guess it's our media that makes everyone think that they're a loser if they can't have, you know, everything the way you see it on TV. It's terrible. The boys in my grade talked about sex a lot. Some of them even told me that they had sex with their girlfriends. This was the most devastating and traumatizing thing I've ever heard in my life. Well, you know, some of the guys are lying. You know, not everybody's telling you the truth. You know, and if there's some truth in it, they're exaggerating. You know, young boys, they exaggerate. It's not always, everything is not always true. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt. Boys having sex at my age of 14, yeah, they want you to believe that. I doubt it. I mean, there are a lot of boys that have sex that young, but if you're at an all-boys school, you know, that's not typical at an all-boys school, okay? I couldn't fathom it. How is it that they were able to have such intimate and pleasurable experiences with girls while I could only fantasize about it? I frequently started asking myself this. This was an all-boys school. How in the hell were those boys even able to meet girls to have sex with? Yeah, they didn't. They were lying. They were bragging. They were being boys, trying to outdo you. That's it. Don't believe everything you hear. So, I wondered, he said. I hoped they were lying. Yes, they were. I hoped against all hope. Hearing that really shook me to the core. Words cannot describe how much hatred and envy I felt for those boys. Why? Why hatred and envy? That hatred would only fester the more I suffer from my sexual starvation. I was too scared to tell anyone about it, and I hid it for a time. Those recent events caused me to withdraw even further away from the world. I drowned all of my misery in my online games. World of Warcraft was the only thing I had left to live for. Are you okay, Dean?
Yeah.
You got a little cough there?
No. I drank 70.
It went down the wrong
No, came back
pipe.
Came uphill.
It went up. It went down the wrong pipe, right?
Well, it came up the pipe.
Okay.
You're a good baby. You're a good baby. Yes, you're a good baby.
All right. I drowned all of my misery in my online games. What's the matter, Lily? What are you doing that for? Are you doing? Did you learn that from Mikey? She learned that from Mikey. What are you doing, Lily? What are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you doing that? Did you learn that from Mikey? She's biting her nails. She's biting her nails like Mikey. Why is she doing that? Is she trying to cut it off? I know we need to trim them soon, but she learned that from Mikey. I've never seen a dog bite his nails. And now she is like Mikey. Oh my gosh. Why are you doing that, Lily? What are you doing? Okay. Yeah. I fed them a late breakfast, so I'm feeding them after I'm done here. It's like 10 o'clock right now. I'm almost done with this section, and then I'm going to feed them. I don't know if she's biting her nail because she's hungry. I mean, Mikey bites his nails, and I think she picked it up from him. That's really interesting, isn't it, Dean?
Isn't it cute? Eyeglasses, isn't it cute?
Yeah. Dean just got some, we had to get him some new eyeglasses, and they weren't cheap. We had to do a payment plan. They used to be a lot cheaper before COVID. We'll have to check out a different eyeglass place next time, but at the same time, we got some really nice glasses for Dean, and we're really happy with them. He looks so sharp in the new glasses. It's going to be in 2 weeks that they arrive.
And you picked one.
Well, yeah, but you agreed. They look good, Dean. They're round like Toda's. They look so beautiful on you.
No. Lightning Walters, John Boy.
No, it's Jose Toda. All right, so we're almost done. I'm sorry. Okay. World of Warcraft was the only thing I had left to live for. Boy, he's so over dramatic. My grades at Crespi dropped dramatically. I just didn't care anymore. I hated that school. Yeah, your parents should have taken you out of there. I didn't think about my future. The only thing I gave any serious thought to was my World of Warcraft character. I had become very powerful in the game. Yeah, so he wanted to feel powerful. So he wanted to be in that reality instead of real life, right? Yeah. And I was in one of the best guilds. With this guild, I participated in lots of 5-hour raid events to collect better gear and armor for my character. Mother moved to a new house. Boy, she's always moving, isn't she? Both his parents. You know, that's very disruptive to a kid's routine. I moved endlessly as a child. I lived in a house when I was first born in Los Altos, and then when I was 2.5, just before my brother was born in 1968, we moved to a new house in Palo Alto, which my parents bought that house. We had rented the Los Altos house, and we purchased the Palo Alto house. I mean, my parents did. And then we left so my father could go to Harvard Business School in 1971 when I was almost 6. And we rented a house in Lexington, Massachusetts for 1.5 years. And then after that 1.5 years, we moved to Old Greenwich, Connecticut. So, okay, 1, 2, 3, and then 4 was Old Greenwich. We lived for 1 year in a rented house on Edgewater. Edgewater Drive, I think it was, in Old Greenwich, and then we moved to 19 Tate Road. Okay, so that's 5 houses so far that I've lived in, and I'm in 2nd grade now. And then yeah, the last one is 6 houses I lived in growing up. The last one was in Princeton, New Jersey. Well, no, 7 if you include my father's house on Edgerstone Road in Princeton. Yeah, I mean, that was at the end of high school, before I left home for good and never return. Yeah, 7 houses. I thought it was 6. No, 7. 7 houses I lived in growing up.
It's not like you were a military brat.
Yeah, I know. And then when I moved out on my own as an adult, oh my God, you thought 7 houses was a lot? Boy, I lived so many places in New York. I can't, I'd have to sit down and list them all. It's so many. Oh, even more places in Los Angeles when I moved to Los Angeles after that. Even in Hawaii, I lived in 2 different places. I lived in Hawaii for 6 months, if that. Yeah, just barely 6 months. Lived in 2 places there. Okay, Dean, I have to finish up. I can't get into a lot of stuff. What were you doing? You're trying to be part of this live stream, and I appreciate it, but I have to finish up now. Okay, I've got to change. I got to change Elizabeth. What are you doing with the little mouse and the cheese?
I gotta get batteries in.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. I'm just trying to see where I was so I can finish this up. Okay, so mother moved to a new house with a swimming pool. I never had a swimming pool growing up, ever. With a swimming pool that she was able to lease for a fair price. She picked me and my sister up from father's house and took us there as a surprise. It was located near the old blue house, though in a nicer area. This was on a day that I had an event on World of Warcraft in the afternoon, and I was very concerned about whether or not I would make it in time. So when we got to the new house, I didn't even look around and immediately hooked up my laptop to play World of Warcraft. I was that obsessed. After being bullied so much in 8th and 9th grade, I became more shy and timid than I ever was in my life. I felt very small, weak, and above all, worthless. I cried by myself at school every day. Wow. The very last day of 9th grade was the worst. I was having PE at the gym, and one of my obnoxious classmates named Jesse was bragging about having sex with his girlfriend. I defiantly told him that I didn't believe him, so he played a voice recording of what sounded like him and his girlfriend having sex. Oh, that's nasty. I could hear a girl saying his name over and over again while she panted frantically. He grinned at me smugly. I felt so inferior to him, and I hated him. It was at that moment that I was called to the office. When I got there, my mother was waiting for me to take me home. I cried heavily as I told her about what happened earlier. That was the last day I ever set foot in Crispy Carmelite High School. Yeah, I don't think that was a good place for you. What happened earlier about this kid bragging about his girlfriend and playing him a tape? Why would he tell his mother about that? Crespi was finished. I thought I could finally relax. Little did I know the worst was yet to come. Oh no, because he probably went to a co-ed school and already he was not used to girls anymore because they deprived him of that over at the all-boys school, and now he was really in a bad place. Okay. Hypersensitive guy. And when a child is hypersensitive like that, they require a lot of attention, I guess, and it seemed like he got a good amount of attention growing up, but he was really reaching turbulent waters and needed more assistance that he wasn't getting. My parents shocked me with very horrible news. They were planning on sending me to Taft High School. Taft had 5 times as many students as Crespi. It was a public school. It had girls in it, and it had a bad reputation. I had never been so scared in my entire life. How could they do this to me? After knowing what I went through at Crespi, Taft High School would eat me alive and spit me out. I felt so betrayed by my parents. On top of that, they told me I had to go to summer school at Taft very soon. I failed a few classes at Crespi, and I had to make up for them. The summer was supposed to be a time of peace and relaxation. This was turning out to be the worst summer of my life. Well, okay, wouldn't you want to repair your school record and, make it better again? I went with my parents to the Taft orientation event, and it was a horrific experience. I felt so dismayed at how large the school was and how intimidating all of the tall students were. I even begged my parents to send me back to Crespi because I knew Taft would be much worse. Uh-oh. Wonder why they didn't. I guess his grades weren't good enough to get into a private school. I know I couldn't get into a private school because my grades were so bad. I had a foul time at summer school. I remember how I used to hate it when my parents made me go to summer camp. Summer camp was like heaven compared to summer school at Taft. I got lost on the first day. I was so terrified that I hid in the hallways during break time. I spent my time at summer school gruelingly waiting to go home so I could feel safe playing World of Warcraft. My 15th birthday was in the midst of this summer school term. I was so miserable during this period that I didn't even give much thought to it. It was so uneventful that I barely remember anything about it. I believe I just had dinner with my mother and played World of Warcraft afterwards. Okay, well, we're going to leave it there. It's so sad that everything was such a trauma. I mean, my life was filled with true trauma. This is minor stuff, and I just can't believe he didn't have the coping mechanisms, or I don't understand why he was not able to cope with what seems to me very typical experiences that young people go through. I mean, I went through hell, but I didn't let it daunt me. I mean, I went through so much more hell than this, but at school, at home, more trauma than I've ever known anyone to go through. But I still, hung on to hope, I guess. I'm not trying to speak secret messages here because I know somebody who lives in New Hope, but I'm just, that's all I had, and I held on to it, and that's what pulled me through. And he just is just given up. He's already given up before he even gives himself a chance. He's given up. He's like, I can't do it. Oh, and I've done, that in many ways in different, in certain situations. I understand that, but, give yourself a chance. It seemed like it was in his mind. He has serious mental health issues. And his family underestimated how much he was suffering. When a child is not able to cope with kids at school like that, there's mental health issues there that need to be attended to without delay. To ignore that and just say, he'll get over it. No, somebody like him needed to see a mental health professional to be able to talk through this, to open up to and talk about all this stuff, to make sense of it. He needed someone, to hear him out and talk over his fears and his phobias and help him, cope with them and figure out a game plan so he could function normally. He was not functioning normally. I mean, he had his whole childhood. It was great. And then all of a sudden, things changed with puberty and, with hormones, some chemicals shifted in his brain, and he was not acting normally. He was not the normal kid they were used to. And, you got to take that seriously, and I don't think his parents understood what he was going through. And that's sad, because look what happened. All right, we are done. see you next time. I don't know when next time will be. It might be later. I need to get through this, and I am now on, oh wow, I'm on 48, page 48, which means I am like, if it was only 100 pages, I'd be 50% done halfway through it. I don't know. I feel like it's going faster. I'm making more progress because I'm not dilly-dallying as much, right? I'm getting down to work. So, I mean, I was working, you know, expanding on what it opened up for me, what it triggered, what it cued me to talk about. That's work too. But yeah, I want to get through this. I need to get through this before the end of this weekend. I really am convinced that if I do that, I mean, you know, I could be totally wrong. I mean, but I hope I'm right, okay? I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm convinced that if I get through this entire manifesto this weekend, David will Bryan Kohberger will reveal his true identity at the hearing on Monday, the hearing at which he is required to submit his alibi. The alibi he hasn't given all this time because he doesn't have one, because he's guilty. But it's not Bryan Kohberger who is guilty, and I think he wants, you know, Bryan's family to understand this. It is David Wayne Craig who is guilty. And David, please, if I am spending so much time on this, this is a very, I mean, this is a book. I'm reading your entire book live, publicly and live, and commenting on it as I go, talking about what it opens up for me and what it gets me to think about, and I'm going to get it done. See, I'm almost halfway through. Almost. If it was only 100 pages, I'd be halfway through it. And I'm almost halfway through it. So please do me the honor. I mean, you've never really truly honored me ever. You've always humiliated me behind my back and played with me and tortured me and killed me. David has killed me on more than one occasion, very violently and very horribly. And I always came back. I wasn't done here. I'm not done here. And I'm still not done here. And he knows this. Both my parents knew this. They knew I don't die. I die and I come back. Sorry. Not done here. I haven't fulfilled my life mission. I'm not going anywhere until my mission is accomplished here on earth. On earth as it is in heaven. Sorry. So, David, reveal your true identity, please. I mean, well, Bryan Kohberger, I'm doing this. You do your part on Monday, okay? The world needs to see your real face. The world needs to know the true story. Make it happen. Okay? I'm making this happen. You do your part and make that happen. Okay? With that, see you maybe in a few hours. We'll see how I feel. Okay?